Okay, thank you for joining for Tech Tuesday. It's an experimental forum, obviously a legal disclaimer of some sort. Some important notes. First of all, recording the session. Hopefully I'll publish it on YouTube. So don't discuss any particular clients, anything you don't want on the internet. Now, my goal is not to go in depth. My goal is to spark, some discussion. So more than half the time is dedicated for participation, so please participate. Also, it's not just me. I would love it if other people talk and share their experience. Just contact me and we'll do it. So here's the format, 5 minutes, talking about a particular technology, market, discovery, whatever. 10 minutes explaining problems or solutions that are specific to IP in that particular situation. 10 minutes discussion from everybody who's not a speaker, and 5 minutes overflow if necessary. Again, not trying to go in depth. There should be more than enough time to give a feeling for the different fields. Okay, so why am I doing this? I'm assuming everybody read my invitation, but one of the things that I find is that our work depends a lot on the particular technology, the particular market, and other context. Now, as you get older, you have more experience, and a lot of examples, but technology is always changing. And each one of us has his particular sets of clients or fields that they work in. And what people do in other fields can be very helpful and very interesting. So the idea is that each one of these Tech Tuesdays, somebody will present a single technology and talk about what they do special over there. And it can be broad or narrow, that's not important for now. However, for the first meeting, I'm selecting a set of markets. Okay, it's unusual because I want to contrast what we might have said in each one of those different situations. But next meeting will be about only a single technology. Okay, so let's start. So we have a company and they developed a nutrient and it has a special crystallographic structure. And the result is it's absorbed much faster and more completely in the body. That's the basic technology. Now, imagine that we have 3 different markets. The first market is when you sell people nutrients, a box of pills with vitamin C. The second market is pharmaceuticals. This nutrient can obviously be combined with other medicines and be wonderful. And the third market is a nutrient can be used instead of for people, it can be used for growing cultured meat in a bioreactor for hamburgers. Now, the question I'm posing is, will one patenting strategy be good for all 3? So, obviously the answer is not. And let me compare how different they are. So first, let's talk about nutrients. I'm developing a nutrient. The sale of the nutrient can be direct to the customer by mail order or maybe through a store. Basically, what we're talking about is a product company. They're making the nutrient and they're selling it. In this type of company, one of the reasons why somebody buys your product is because of hype, not because your product really is better. Having studies showing efficiency can be useful, but I've read some studies that shows that 80-something% of all claims about the amount of the nutrient in a pill are wrong. So talking about efficacy is funny. So far, let's call it a standard company. Now, what happens when your patent expires of old age? Your competitors will come out with exactly the same product. So how will you continue making money? So maybe you have market power, but we're an IP. So presumably you can come out with a new version of the product, but you have to force the people who are used to the previous product and believe in it to buy the new one. So any IP that you write will have to work together with some significant marketing investment. And what kind of patents should we file after the first patent? I'm suggesting, and maybe we're going to do some R&D and make an improved product. Maybe based on how we're marketing the product or how we plan on educating the market, there'll be special features like nutrient for just after exercise, just before exercise, that kind of things. What kind of other IP could help? Would trade secrets be useful? So, not really, because like I said, nobody really cares what's in your pill. Of course, branding will be useful. And the last question, when we're trying to understand how strong your IP is, what's going to stop your competitors from selling a competing product which isn't as good as yours? Okay, it's junk, but they say, oh, it's wonderful, here's efficacy. Okay, so in general, IP is a nice thing to have in this field, but it's probably not going to make you win. I'll put it that way. Now let's compare it to pharmaceuticals. Pharmaceuticals, you don't just sell direct to customers through small shops. You have distributors, you have big pharma. In a sense, it makes you more of an IP company. The drug may be made in one place and somebody else is selling it, but they can only sell it with your permission. Follow-up IP in pharma is a well-known process. You can have new APIs, a new delivery methods, second medical uses, patient selection, dosing protocols. Now, all of these things are patentable also for nutrients, but they probably have no value. But in pharma, these have a lot of value. If you can get a patent on selecting the right patient for using this nutrient, you're going to get a new patent and it will extend the effective life of your protection for the nutrient. Unlike the nutrient model, it's okay to admit that you have side effects and come out with new formulations or other ways of avoiding the side effects. So you have more things that you can patent even on the original material. Studies are very helpful. When you go to a doctor and try to convince them to sell the medicine, if you have a study showing the medicine is more efficient, more effective, that's very meaningful, and that doctor is an authority figure. So the people who buy from him or buy because of him just buy it. You have a regulatory barrier. If you get FDA approval, somebody else also needs to get the FDA approval, and maybe they need to get the FDA approval in a way that matches up with your IP. The efficacy barrier is very good. If I have a drug that works against pain in 90% of the cases, and my competitor only works in 80% of the cases, people really care. And we have unique leverage opportunities. If we talk about our nutrient, we can take a generic drug, add our nutrient, get a patent, and now the drug used to be generic, but now it's non-generic. Or maybe there's a drug that doesn't work, but when you take it together with our nutrient, suddenly it does work. Okay, these two situations give me a lot of leverage because generic drugs and failed drugs, somebody already spent hundreds of millions of dollars proving safety and efficacy and just, fell off its end. Trade secrets and how manufacture become very important. So why am I showing this? I'm showing this because even when what we're talking about is taking a nutrient and giving the nutrient to human beings, depending on the market that I'm looking at, the type of IP I should be looking for, and how effective will the IP be in protecting me are very, very different. Last one, a nutrient for culture. So basically, if somebody's growing a chicken in a test tube and you give it nutrients so it will grow faster, and we have a nutrient which is better. It's healthier. The meat grows better. What can the IP look like? Well, first I want to explain the problem. You're a commodity. The people growing the meat need to buy nutrient from somebody. They can buy it from you, they can buy it from somebody else. Every time I fill up gas, I see a sign. You can buy regular gasoline or higher quality gasoline. Okay? I don't have to. Maybe the high quality is a little bit better, but in this case, we can actually calculate that the new nutrient improves the yield by 5%. In that case, the value that people would be willing to pay is no more than improving the yield by 5%. But unfortunately, when you're a commodity, people don't want to pay you for the value that you add. They try to get away from it. Also, we have to assume that at some point the competition will be able to provide a product that from the point of view of the buyer is a replacement product. So what this means to me is that if you want to sell in the field of culture nutrients, you need to reach past the nutrient itself and somehow block the competitor, or I'm sorry, your client, from using the product provided by the competitor. So for example, maybe we can get some IP on how you monitor the growth, which is faster. Maybe there's some secondary effects due to the yield rate, some quality assurance step later on, or the speed of the pump. Maybe there's a signature in the meat. If the meat was grown using a better nutrient, the cells are bigger, or the ratio between two different fats is different. Maybe there's some business processes which take advantage of the improved outcome. And again, I'm not saying we're going to patent a business process, but we'll look there for IP to protect. So we're making a nutrient, but we absolutely have to protect what lies beyond the nutrient. Otherwise, very quickly, we will be consigned to commodity hell. And last but not least, when we write the application, absolutely unlike pharmaceuticals, where getting a drug and getting it approved, it's okay usually if your patent is relatively narrow. Here, we cannot narrow our protection to our material because anybody else can come up with a new material. There is some regulatory oversight, but not like in pharma. And last but not least, the leverage that we can get is limited in time. What do I mean by that? I said before, let's say our nutrient gives us 5% better yield. In the end, you can calculate that it's worth $1 per kilogram of meat. That's not leverage, that's value. However, when somebody is trying to enter a new market, having a higher yield rate might allow them to provide enough meat without building more factories. That gives you leverage because now they really need your product. or when you go head to head with competition and you have to somehow show that you're a little bit better. Or you can do bundling. Instead of being just a nutrient company which sells one nutrient, you can sell all of the nutrients. Or you can start doing vertical integration and you sell a nutrient together with technology for monitoring the growth and for doing quality assurance. Okay, so basically what I've showed you is a same invention, different markets, at least from my perspective, gives you a completely different outlook in what kind of IP you want to look for, how useful it will be, and what the prognosis for the company is. Okay, this has been my part. And now I'd love to hear comments from the audience. I don't know if you're familiar with improv. Improv is yes and. Telling me that I'm wrong isn't very useful. Like I said, it's shallow, but improving upon what I'm saying is definitely useful. Talking about a particular experience you had in very generic terms or a trick that you use is very useful. And we have 10 minutes, so please be brief. I think it's totally okay for people to have a discussion, but an argument is not very effective use of our time. So if anybody would like to comment, please. Yes, Iran.
Yes, but I would like to say that you draw 3 different strategies for IP, and given that a company has a finite budget, this is very useful. Yet sometimes you would like to borrow parts of the other strategy for a given company because it still gives value to the company. For example, if the company is the nutrient company and you still have an IP which you think is better for a pharmaceutical company, it doesn't mean that that IP would not add value to the company. Because the company might, in the end, not end as a company that sells that nutrient, but rather as a company that sue others that infringe their patents.
So I'll just rephrase what you said in my words. What you said was, you might have spoken about what the main IP strategy for the company might be, but because IP is about options, it's always good if you also, if you can, get some protection for some other markets. And in these other markets, you will have different type of IP. And I completely agree. And the purpose of the Tech Tuesdays is to remind you that when you do that, when you go to a different market, your IP, what you're looking at and why it has value is going to be different. So if I'm a nutrient company and the IP is being filed really so I can write on the package, patented, and maybe sue people who copy me one-to-one, if I think there's an option to go into pharmaceuticals, I'm going to write a patent taking into account that somebody will have to do FDA approval and how long will it take and who will it be and so on. So I'm in complete agreement. Anybody else? Yes, Leo, please. You're on mute. You're on mute, Leo.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to add a small comment. When your IP is exhausted, especially in the case of nutrients, sometimes one avenue to renew or to get a new patent on something is to look for synergy between your single nutrient and something other than that. So, for example, if your nutrient is an amino acid or something, then maybe, and I've actually run into some cases where if you use leucine as the nutrient, and sometimes if you add arginine, the end result is actually an unexpected more than the combination of the single ones. So that's one avenue of getting new IP when your old patent expired, is to look for synergy and add one more component or something.
So I just want to say, I completely agree. And this is exactly the type of comment I'm looking to hear from the audience, because this is what I'd like us to learn from each other. What do you do in a particular type of technology when you have a particular type of problem? And here's a solution, and I'm sure it can be used, well, it can be used not only for nutrients, but in nutrients, I think it's especially relevant because you don't have much regulatory oversight. But the synergistic effect, if it appears to work at least, or actually works, and people believe that it has value, that already gives value to your patent. So I'm in complete agreement, and I'd love to hear more comments exactly like that one. Okay. Anybody else? Anybody with experience in pharmaceuticals and can think of an example where a technique used in pharmaceuticals might be useful for one of the other fields? Or a trick which I didn't list here, which is very useful when you have a new nutrient and using it as a pharmaceutical? Yes, Leo.
I recall another example where actually will enable you to use a nutrient to get an actual patent on that. And for example, there's a huge market for vitamin C. It's just an example, but one company is called, I forgot their name, but I think it's Solgau, is now selling, sometimes vitamin C creates a problem. The acidity is not good for some people. So what they do is they sell something called ester C, which is an esterified form of the nutrient, which is vitamin C, which is completely neutral in the pH and doesn't cause the gastric problems that some people have with vitamin C. And they actually have a patent on that. So where this comment belongs is where your patent is exhausted. I mean, in vitamin C, there was no patent to begin with. But if you want to patent something that is a natural formula, you can actually do a derivative of it, which gives you some kind of advantage, and then you have a patent. So it's kind of a tangent remark. It's not really a precise comment because vitamin C by itself is not patentable. But like changing a derivative is a way, like from some people, some pharmaceutical companies also, even the salt form is actually important. For example, if you have an alkaloid and you need to formulate it in a salt that is soluble, just changing the acid that goes with it may increase solubility or bioavailability or something like that. That's another way of getting more or additional IP by looking at crystalline form or salts or something like that.
I think that is a very good example when somebody comes to you from a nutrient field and wants to patent an existing material. What you said was, there's a little problem with it. Let's create a derivative, and that derivative will solve the problem and can be patented and can be marketed. That's similar to buffered aspirin in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so our time is up. Thank you very much. Like I said, the goal was just to bring up these ideas, and next time is in 2 weeks. And if somebody volunteers, wonderful. If not, you wouldn't be surprised to hear that I have a few more technologies, specific technologies to talk about, each one with its own special things. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Meyer. Great talk.
Very much.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you.
Bye, thanks.
Bye.
Thanks, Mayor.